Commander Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair at Luna Station. The space around Earth's moon was quiet tonight. Most of the galaxy slept, while humans kept watch. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now. He listened to radio signals from distant worlds and sorted through the noise of space that the coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the screens around him. Green and blue lights blinked in patterns that told him the galaxy was normal. No wars, no disasters. No one calling for help. Then everything changed. A red light started flashing on his main console. Jake sat up straight. Red lights meant emergency signals. Someone was in trouble. He put on his headset and opened the channel. Static filled his ears. Then a voice came through. It was soft and scared. The voice belonged to someone who was not human. "Please," the voice whispered. "Anyone who can hear this. We need help." Jake pressed buttons to clear up the signal. The static faded, and he could hear better. The voice was female. She spoke in the common galactic language that all species use to talk to each other. "This is Ambassador Zithara of the Valani Republic," she said. Her words shook with fear. "The Korath Empire has attacked our system. They have already destroyed 3 of our colony worlds. Our defense fleet tried to stop them. They lasted only 6 hours." Jake felt his stomach drop. He knew about the Korath Empire. Everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were monsters who ate entire planets. They turned living worlds into empty rocks. The voice continued. "We sent messages to the Coalition Council. They say it will take 8 months to organize a proper military response. 8 months to fill out forms and vote on what to do. We do not have 8 months. We have 2 weeks before they reach our home world." Jake could hear crying in the background. Other voices spoke in panic. The Valani were dying, and no one would help them fast enough. "We know humans are different," Zithara said. "The other species say you are dangerous. They say you come from a death world. They fear you. But we are already dead if we wait for copper channels. Please, can you help us?" The signal cut out. Jake stared at his screens in silence. He had heard many distress calls before. Pirates attacking merchant ships, natural disasters on remote worlds, equipment failures on deep space stations. But this was different. This was genocide. Jake picked up his secure phone and called Captain Lessa Kane. She answered after 2 rings. "Kane here," she said. Her voice was sharp and awake. Military officers learn to wake up fast. "Captain, we have a situation," Jake said. "The Korath Empire is attacking the Valani system. They want our help." There was silence on the line. Then Kane spoke again. "Send me the full recording. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Jake uploaded the message to the secure network. He made copies and sent them to every important person he could think of. Admiral Harrison, General Peterson, Ambassador Price. If the galaxy wanted to ignore a genocide, humanity would not. Captain Kane arrived exactly 20 minutes later. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and cold blue eyes. She had fought in 3 border conflicts and never lost a battle. She sat down next to Jake and listened to the message again. "How bad is it?" she asked. Jake pulled up a map of the Valani system on his main screen. Red dots showed where Korath ships were moving. Blue dots showed what was left of the Valani fleet. There were many more red dots than blue ones. 3 worlds completely stripped of life, Jake said. The Korath bioships consumed everything. Plants, animals, people. They left nothing but bare rock. Kane studied the tactical display. Her face showed no emotion, but Jake could see her hands tighten into fists. "What about coalition response?" she asked. Jake pulled up another screen. It showed the official coalition military deployment schedule, committees and subcommittees, voting procedures, resource allocation reviews. The bureaucracy was a maze of red tape. 8 months minimum, Jake said. Maybe longer if anyone objects to the mission. Kane stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at Earth, hanging in the black sky. Home was a blue and green ball covered in white clouds. It looked peaceful from here. But Jake knew Captain. Kane was thinking about war. The Vellani called us dangerous, she said. They said other species fear us. Yes, ma'am, Jake replied. Kane turned around. Her smile was cold and sharp. They have no idea how right they are. She picked up the secure phone and dialed a number. Jake could hear it ringing. Admiral Harrison? This is Kane. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. The Korath Empire is committing genocide in the Vellani system. They've requested human assistance. Jake could not hear the other side of the conversation, but he watched Kane's face as she listened. Understood. Sir, she said finally, I'll prepare the briefing materials. She hung up the phone and looked at Jake. What did he say? Jake asked. Kane's smile got wider. He said to tell the Vellani that help is coming, and to tell the Korath that they picked the wrong fight. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen what human military forces could do. The galaxy thought humans were dangerous because they came from a harsh world. They had no idea that humans were dangerous because they chose to be. How long until we can deploy? Jake asked. Kane checked her watch. The USS Defiance and USS Retribution are running training exercises in Sector 7. Pure coincidence, of course. They could be in Vellani space in 18 hours. Jake nodded. 18 hours. The coalition needed 8 months to decide what to do. Humans needed 18 hours to be there and ready to fight, Captain, Jake said. What if the coalition objects to us acting without permission? Kane was already walking toward the door. She paused and looked back at him. Jake, she said, sometimes you have to choose between following rules and doing what's right. Humans have never been good at following rules when innocent people are dying. She left the communications center. Jake sat alone with his screens and his cold coffee. Somewhere in the dark space between stars, monsters were eating an entire civilization. And humanity was about to remind the galaxy why evolution had made them predators. Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance as it dropped out of hyperspace. The stars shifted from streaks of light back to steady points. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had done this many times before. Sensor report, Harrison ordered. Lieutenant Commander Beth Collins looked up from her console. Her face was pale. Sir, I'm reading massive biosignatures throughout the system. The Korath fleet is bigger than our intelligence estimated. Harrison walked over to the main display screen. What he saw there made his jaw tighten. The Korath Empire did not build ships like other species. Their vessels were alive. Massive creatures bred for war and grown in biofactories. They looked like deep-sea monsters floating in the black ocean of space. How many? Harrison asked. 214 confirmed contacts, Collins replied. They're arranged in feeding formations around 3 planets. Sir, those worlds show no life signs at all. They've been completely consumed. Captain Ryan Torres opened a communication channel from the USS Retribution. His ship had arrived at the same time as the Defiance. Admiral, my sensors confirm the count. We're outnumbered 5-1. Harrison smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Good, that makes it sporting. The Korath bioships moved in swarms like schools of predatory fish. Each one was the size of a city block. Their hulls were covered in thick armor that looked like beetle shells. Weapons pods grew from their sides like cancerous tumors. They fired bioplasma that could melt through any known armor. "Sir?" called Lieutenant Danny Kim from the fighter control station. "The Korath are launching attack swarms. Thousands of biofighters incoming." Harrison had fought many battles in his 30-year career. He had faced pirates and rebels and hostile aliens, but he had never fought anything like this. The Korath biofighters were not machines. They were living creatures with wings and claws and acid breath. They moved like angry hornets, protecting their nest. "Launch all fighters," Harrison ordered. "Tell them to remember their training." Commander Amy Foster led the first squadron of human fighters into battle. Her ship was small and fast compared to the Korath biofighters, but it was built by humans who understood that sometimes you had to fight monsters. "This is Falcon Leader," Foster reported over the radio. "Contact with enemy fighters in 30 seconds. They look even uglier up close." The human fighters did not fight like coalition forces. Most alien species engaged in formal battles with predictable patterns. They flew in neat formations and followed ancient rules of warfare. Humans fought like the predators they were. Foster led her squadron into the asteroid field at the edge of the system. The Korath biofighters followed them like dogs chasing a rabbit. But the humans knew these rocks better than their enemies did. They had studied the sensor readings during their approach. "Break and scatter," Foster ordered. "Show them how Earth pilots fly." The human fighters split apart and dove between the asteroids. They flew at speeds that would crush most alien pilots. Their bodies were protected by pressure suits and G-force dampeners that let them pull maneuvers that seemed impossible. Lieutenant Danny Kim rolled his fighter through a gap between two spinning rocks. 3 Korath biofighters tried to follow him. Only one made it through. The other 2 smashed into the asteroids and exploded in bursts of green fire. "Woohoo!" Kim shouted over the radio. "These things fly like drunken elephants." The Korath had numbers, but the humans had something else. They had been raised on a world where everything tried to kill them. Storms that could flatten cities, earthquakes that swallowed mountains, animals that hunted in packs and showed no mercy. Earth had taught humanity to be fast and smart and completely without fear. Foster lined up her targeting system on a Korath Command biofighter. It was 3 times the size of her ship and covered in natural armor. But she had studied the intelligence. Reports, she knew where to hit it. "Target acquired," she reported, going for the nerve cluster. Her missiles struck the biofighter in exactly the right spot. The creature convulsed and died, its wings folding as it tumbled into the asteroid field. The other Korath biofighters pulled back in confusion. They had never fought enemies who could kill their commander so easily. On the USS Defiance, Admiral Harrison watched the battle unfold on his tactical display. His fighters were winning, but the real threat was the Korath fleet. Those massive bioships were moving toward the last Vellani world like a plague of locusts. "Sir," reported Collins from the sensor station, "the Korath are breaking formation. They're heading for the planet." Harrison nodded. He had expected this. The Korath did not care about military targets. They only wanted to feed. The planet below held 3 billion Vellani civilians who had nowhere to run. "Captain Torres," Harrison said into his radio, "are you ready to try something the Coalition has never seen before?" Torres laughed. "Admiral, I've been ready for 20 years." The human ships moved into attack formation, but they did not charge straight at the enemy like heroes in an old movie. They used the asteroids for cover and approached from multiple angles. The Korath bioships were powerful, but they were not smart. They had been bred for feeding, not thinking. Harrison ordered his weapons officer to target the largest Korath bioship. It was the size of a space station and covered in feeding tentacles that could drain a planet dry in days. Fire, Harrison ordered. The USS Defiance launched everything it had: missiles and energy beams and projectile weapons. The Korath bioship shuddered under the impact. Green blood leaked from wounds in its hull. But it did not die. Instead, it turned toward the human ships with rage in its compound eyes. It opened a mouth big enough to swallow a building and roared across the radio frequencies. The sound was like nails on a blackboard, mixed with the screams of the dying. "Well," Harrison said calmly, "now we have its attention." The Korath bioship fired back with weapons that no sane species would ever build. Bioplasma cannons that shot living acid. Parasite missiles that tried to burrow into enemy hulls. Nerve gas clouds that could drive crews insane. But the humans had studied Korath tactics for months. They knew what was coming. The USS Defiance rolled away from the bioplasma while firing point defense systems at the parasite missiles. The nerve gas bounced harmlessly off their sealed hull. "Their weapons are impressive," Harrison told his crew. "But they're still just animals. Animals can be outsmarted." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships darted in and out of the asteroid field like wolves hunting a mammoth. They struck fast and hard, then disappeared before the Korath could respond. The bioships grew frustrated and angry. They made mistakes. Commander Foster and her pilots had destroyed dozens of biofighters. But the real victory came when she led a strike on the Korath command ship. It was a monster the size of a small moon, covered in sensory organs and control tentacles. "This is Falcon Leader," she reported as her squadron approached the target. "Beginning attack run on the brain bug." Her fighters dove toward the command ship from 6 different directions. The Korath tried to defend it, but they could not track all the human pilots at once. Foster's missiles found their target and exploded deep inside the creature's nervous system. The effect was immediate. The entire Korath fleet shuddered and slowed. Without coordination from their command ship, the bioships began to drift apart. Some turned on each other in confusion. "Sir?" Collins reported with amazement in her voice. "The Korath fleet is breaking up. They're actually retreating." Harrison watched the enemy ships flee toward the edge of the system. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Korath Empire had been defeated in open battle. But he knew this was only the beginning. "Open a channel to the Korath command ship," he ordered. The main screen filled with the image of a nightmare. Hive Queen Shareth was a creature of living armor and compound eyes. She had ruled the Korath Empire for 200 years and consumed 50 worlds. "Humans," she hissed in the common galactic language, "we know of your species. You are few. We are legion. We will consume your worlds next." Harrison looked at the alien monster without fear. His expression was calm and friendly. When he spoke, his words were polite and reasonable. "Ma'am," he said, "with respect, you just threatened my home. That was a mistake." Admiral Harrison cut the communication channel and turned to his science officer, Dr. Susan. Walsh had been studying Korath biomatter for 6 months. She was a thin woman with gray hair and cold eyes. Her specialty was making things that killed. "Other things, Doctor," Harrison said. "Tell me you have good news." Walsh smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Admiral, I've been waiting for this moment. The Korath bioships have a weakness. They're alive, which means they can get sick." She pulled up a display on the main screen. It showed microscopic organisms swimming in green fluid. They looked harmless, but Harrison had learned not to trust appearances. "This is a modified Earth bacterium," Walsh explained. "I've changed it to attack Korath biological systems. It won't kill them immediately. It will just make their ships very, very sick. Captain Torres joined the conversation from the USS Retribution. "Doctor, define very sick for us." Walsh's smile got wider. "Imagine the worst case of food poisoning you've ever had. Now imagine your spaceship has the same problem. The bioships will lose power, navigation, and weapons. They'll essentially fall apart from the inside." Harrison nodded slowly. What Walsh was proposing was biological warfare. It was the kind of weapon that civilized species would never use. But the Korath had threatened Earth. They had promised to consume human worlds and eat human children. "How do we deploy it?" Harrison asked. "We need to plant the virus directly into their bioships," Walsh replied. "Someone has to board those vessels and place the payload in their central nervous systems." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Boarding a Korath bioship was considered impossible. The aliens fought like demons to protect their living vessels. The corridors were filled with acid and toxic gases. Most species would die just from breathing the air inside. Colonel Pete Davis spoke up from the Marine Command Station. "Admiral, my boys are ready for a field trip." Harrison looked at the colonel. Davis was a short man with scars on his face and murder in his eyes. His Marines were the kind of soldiers who volunteered for impossible missions. They were all volunteers because sane people did not fight Korath hand to hand. "Colonel, this is not a normal boarding action," Harrison warned. "Those ships are living creatures. The walls bleed. The floors digest anything that touches them. The air itself tries to kill you." Davis shrugged. "Sir, we're Marines. We've seen worse." Harrison doubted that, but he did not argue. He had worked with Davis before. The man could lead troops through hell itself if the mission required it. "Very well," Harrison said. "Prepare your teams. We go in fast and hard." The human boarding shuttles launched from both ships at the same time. They were small and fast, designed to penetrate enemy defenses before anyone could react. Each shuttle carried 12 Marines in full combat armor. Colonel Davis led the first team personally. His target was the largest Korath bioship in the fleet. It was a command vessel the size of a city, covered in weapons and sensor organs. Getting inside would be like performing surgery on a living dragon. "Remember," Davis told his Marines, over the radio, "these things are not ships, they're animals. Big, mean, ugly animals that want to eat us. So we eat them first." The boarding shuttle punched through the bioship's hull with cutting lasers. Green blood sprayed everywhere as the vessel's skin split open. The Marines poured through the gap like antibodies fighting an infection. The inside of the Korath bioship was a nightmare. The corridors were made of living tissue that pulsed with alien heartbeats. The walls were covered in eyes that tracked the humans as they moved. The floor tried to digest their boots with acid secretions. "Well," said Sergeant Tony Miller as he stepped over a puddle of digestive fluid, "this is definitely going in my report." The Marines moved through the organic maze with grim efficiency. Their suits protected them from the toxic atmosphere. There, weapons cut through Korath defenders like chainsaws through tissue paper. They had studied the bioship layouts for months. They knew exactly where to go. The Korath crew fought desperately to stop them. Warrior breeds emerged from wall cavities, with claws and acid spit. They were fast and strong and completely without fear. But they had never fought humans before. Corporal Jenny Foster rolled under a Korath warrior's claws and shot it in what passed for a face. The alien collapsed in a spray of green blood. "These things are uglier than my drill sergeant," she reported. The Marines reached the bioship's central nervous system after 20 minutes of fighting. It was a chamber the size of a cathedral, filled with pulsing brain tissue and nerve bundles. The walls glowed with bioluminescent patterns. It was beautiful and horrifying at the same time. "Target acquired," Davis reported, planting the package. Now, he pressed Dr. Walsh's viral weapon against the largest nerve cluster. The device activated and began pumping modified bacteria into the bioship's bloodstream. Within minutes, the effect was visible. The walls began to convulse. The lights flickered and dimmed. "Package delivered," Davis said. "Time to leave." The Marines fought their way back to their shuttle as the bioship began to die around them. The creature was experiencing the equivalent of a massive heart attack. Its immune system was trying to fight the infection, but the human virus was too smart. It adapted faster than the Korath defenses could respond. Similar scenes played out across the enemy fleet. Human Marines boarded dozens of bioships and planted viral weapons in their nervous systems. It was the kind of coordinated assault that required split-second timing and absolute courage. The effect on the Korath fleet was devastating. Within hours, their massive bioships began to convulse and shut down. Living vessels that had consumed entire worlds fell apart like rotten fruit. The proud Korath Empire found itself stranded in space, helpless and dying. "Admiral," reported Collins from the sensor station, "all Korath bioships are showing system failures. They're launching escape pods." Harrison watched the tactical display as hundreds of small pods ejected from the dying fleet. Each pod contained Korath survivors who had lost everything. Their living ships were dead. Their weapons were useless. They were completely at human mercy. "Sir?" asked Captain Torres. "What are your orders regarding the escape pods?" Harrison considered the question. The civilized response would be to let them go. The practical response would be to destroy them before they could regroup. But Harrison chose a third option. "Recover all escape pods," he ordered. "Take the survivors." "Prisoner." "Sir?" Torres sounded confused. "You heard me, Captain. I want every Korath survivor in our custody. Treat them well. Give them medical care if they need it. Feed them. Keep them comfortable." The bridge crew exchanged glances. No one understood why the Admiral wanted to be kind to enemies who had just tried to commit genocide. "Admiral," asked Collins, "may I ask why we're helping them?" Harrison's smile was terrifying in its friendliness. "Because we're going to send them home. Every single one with a message." Over the next 6 hours, human ships recovered every Korath escape pod in the system. The aliens were processed and housed in comfortable detention facilities. They received medical treatment and regular meals. They were treated better than most prisoners in the galaxy. The Korath prisoners were confused and frightened. They had expected to be tortured or executed. Instead, they found themselves facing humans who were polite and professional. There, captors even asked about dietary requirements and medical needs. Hive Queen Sharath herself was among the prisoners. She sat in her cell and stared at the human guard outside. He was reading a book and drinking coffee. He looked bored. "Human," she called out. "Why do you not kill us?" The guard looked up from his book. "Ma'am, that's not how we do things." "You have defeated us completely," Sharath said. "We are your enemies. We threatened your worlds." The guard shrugged. "Yeah, and now you're our prisoners. Don't worry, you'll be going home soon." Sharath felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. She was beginning to understand that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They did not just defeat their enemies. They sent messages. Admiral Harrison visited the detention area personally. He walked through the rows of cells, like a general inspecting troops. The Korath prisoners watched him with fear and confusion. "Attention," Harrison announced. "In 72 hours, you will all be released. You will be given ships and supplies for the journey home. You will be treated with dignity and respect until that time." He paused and looked directly at Hive Queen. "Sharath, When you return to your empire, he continued, you will deliver a message. Tell them that Earth remembers its friends. Tell them that Earth also remembers its enemies. Tell them that the next time they threaten innocent people, we will not be so merciful. Shareth understood now. The humans were not just winning a battle. They were rewriting the rules of galactic warfare. They were showing the universe that monsters could be defeated by bigger monsters, and humanity was just getting started. Ambassador Helen Price stood before the Coalition Council on Sanctuary Prime. The council chamber was a massive dome designed to hold representatives from dozens of different alien species. Today it felt more like a courtroom than a place of diplomacy. Council Speaker Thalvin towered over the assembly. He was a Zephyrian, an insect-like creature with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. His species had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years through careful politics and endless bureaucracy. Ambassador Price, Thalvin said in his buzzing voice, humanity's actions in the Villani system have created a difficult situation. Price stood calmly at the speaker's podium. She was a small woman with graying hair and tired eyes. She had been Earth's voice in galactic politics for 10 years. She had learned to speak their language, but she had never learned to think like them. Council Speaker, Price replied, could you clarify what you mean by difficult situation? Councillor Morden spoke from her position near the chamber's edge. She was an aquatic species with tentacles instead of arms. Her voice bubbled through a translation device. Your species used biological weapons against the Korath fleet, Morden had used. Such tactics are considered barbaric by civilized standards. Price nodded slowly. Councillor Morden, are you saying it would have been more civilized to let the Korath consume 3 billion Villani civilians? That is not the point, buzzed Thalvin. There are proper procedures for military intervention, treaties and protocols that must be followed. Your species acted without authorization. We acted while you debated, Price said firmly. The Korath Empire was committing genocide. Every hour you spent in committee meetings was another 1,000 dead civilians. The chamber erupted in angry chittering and bubbling. Representatives from dozens of species all began speaking at once. Some defended humanity's actions. Others called for sanctions. A few even suggested removing Earth from the Coalition entirely. Price waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice carried across the chamber like a blade. Honored representatives, she said, let me share some facts with you. The Korath Empire has consumed 47 worlds in the past century. Your response has been to hold hearings and form committees. In that same time, they have eaten approximately 2 trillion sentient beings. The chamber fell silent. Price continued. Humanity destroyed their entire fleet in 18 hours. We stopped a genocide that your bureaucracy could not prevent in 100 years. If that makes us barbaric, then I suggest you examine what your civilization has become. Back on Earth, General Carl Peterson sat in his office reading intelligence reports. The documents painted a picture of a galaxy in chaos. The destruction of the Korath fleet had sent shockwaves through every military force in known space. Sir, said his aide, Colonel Frank Webb, we're getting reports from all over the galaxy. Multiple species are requesting immediate peace negotiations with their neighbors. Peterson looked up from his papers. Fear makes people reasonable. The hegemony of scales has withdrawn from 4 contested systems, Webb continued. The Void Hunters are actually responding to diplomatic communications for the first time in 50 years. And the Draconis Collective has offered to mediate 3 different border disputes. Peterson smiled grimly. Word travels fast out here. They're all wondering the same thing. What's that, sir? If humans can casually dismantle the Korath Empire in a few days, what else are we capable of? The question was being asked in military academies and government buildings across the galaxy. Humanity's reputation had changed overnight. No longer were they the primitive newcomers from a backwater world. Now they were the sleeping giants who had awakened. Captain Ryan Torres, newly promoted to Commodore for his actions in the Vellani system, met with Peterson to discuss the implications. "Sir," Torres said, "our intelligence sources report that half the galaxy's military forces are revising their tactical doctrines. They're trying to figure out how we won so decisively." "And what are they learning?" Peterson asked. Torres shrugged. "That they've been fighting the wrong kind of war for centuries. Most species engage in formal battles with predictable patterns. They follow rules and protocols that were written by committee. We fight like predators." Peterson nodded. That was the fundamental difference. Other species had evolved past their predatory instincts. They had become civilized, which meant they had forgotten how to be truly dangerous. Humans had never forgotten. "What about trade requests?" Peterson asked. "Pouring in," Torres replied. 17 different species want to establish formal trade agreements. 6 others are requesting mutual defense pacts. And the Vellani have offered us exclusive mining rights to their entire system. Peterson was not surprised. Fear and gratitude were powerful motivators. The galaxy was learning that humanity could be a valuable friend or a terrifying enemy. Meanwhile, Ambassador Zithara of the Vellani Republic requested a private meeting with Ambassador Price. They met in Price's office on Sanctuary Prime, away from the politics and bureaucracy of the council chamber. Zithara was a graceful creature with crystalline skin and large violet eyes. Her species was known for their artistic abilities and peaceful nature. They had never been warriors. That was why the Korath had targeted them. "Ambassador Price," Zithara said, "my people owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid." Price shook her head. "Ambassador, no debt is owed. We did what any decent species would do." "But that is exactly the point," Zithara replied. "Other species would not have done what you did. They would have followed proper procedures while my people died. You chose to act." Price considered this. "Ambassador, may I ask you something?" "Personal? Of course. When you sent that distress signal to Earth, did you really expect us to help?" Zithara was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, we were desperate. We had heard stories about humans, that you come from a death world, that you are dangerous and unpredictable. Most species fear you. And now," Zithara smiled, "now we understand that dangerous can also mean protective. Your species does not just fight to win. You fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Price felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. Humanity had saved the Vellani, but at a cost. The galaxy now saw them as the dangerous species that solved problems through violence. "Ambassador," Price said, "I hope the galaxy learns the right lesson from this." "What lesson is that?" "That civilization is not about following rules. It's about protecting the innocent. Sometimes that requires violence. Sometimes it requires breaking rules that evil people hide behind." News of the human victory spread through underground channels as well as official ones. Pirates and slavers who had operated freely for years suddenly found themselves looking over their shoulders. If humans could destroy the mighty Korath Empire, what would they do to smaller predators? The effect was immediate. Piracy rates dropped by 70% in sectors near human space. Slave markets closed rather than risk human attention. Criminal organizations that had been bold for decades suddenly became very careful about their targets. Captain Joe Martinez commanded a human patrol ship in the Rigel sector. His mission was simple: keep the shipping lanes safe. But since the Vellani incident, his job had become much easier. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're getting a distress call from a merchant vessel. They're under attack by pirates in Grid 77 Alpha." Martinez checked his navigation display. Grid 77 Alpha was 20 minutes away at maximum speed. In the old days, that would have been too late to help. Set course for the merchant vessel, Martinez ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, asked his weapons officer, what about the pirates? Martinez smiled. What about them? The USS Guardian dropped out of hyperspace directly between the pirates and their target. 3 pirate ships had surrounded a lone merchant vessel. They were demanding cargo and threatening to kill the crew. Martinez opened a communication channel. To the pirate ships. Gentlemen, this is Captain Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to release that merchant vessel and surrender, or I'm going to show you why humans don't have natural predators. The effect was immediate. All 3 pirate ships broke off their attack and fled into hyperspace. They did not even try to negotiate. The reputation of human military forces had reached every corner of the galaxy. The merchant captain, a young Velani trader named Cassara, thanked Martinez personally. Captain, she asked, how did you arrive so quickly? Our distress signal was only sent 5 minutes ago. Martinez's grin was pure human confidence. Miss, we don't wait for trouble to find us. We go looking for it. As word of the incident spread, it became clear that humanity had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had not conquered anyone or claimed new territory. They had simply made it clear that there were consequences for certain behaviors. The galaxy was learning a new rule. Hurt innocent people, and humans will find you. And when they do, all the bureaucracy and procedure in the universe will not. Save you dot, it was a lesson that some species learned faster than others. 6 months after the Velani rescue, Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the observation deck of Sanctuary Prime Station. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of different species coming and going. The galaxy looked peaceful. From here, but Harrison knew better. His aide, Commander Ben Carter, approached with a datapad full of reports. Admiral, Carter said, the morning briefings are ready. You're going to like some of these. Harrison took the pad and scrolled through the information. What he read made him smile. The Korath Empire has officially requested a non-aggression pact with Earth, Harrison read aloud. They're offering territorial concessions and war reparations to 17 different species. Carter nodded. It gets better, sir. The hegemony of Scales has withdrawn from 4 contested systems. The Void Hunters have started responding to diplomatic communications, and 3 different pirate organizations have disbanded completely. Harrison continued reading. The Coalition Council has unanimously approved something called the Harrison Protocols. Named after you, sir, Carter explained. It's a new framework for emergency military intervention. Basically, it allows rapid response when civilians are threatened without waiting for committee approval. Harrison was quiet for a moment. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was the reason why. Not through conquest or threats, but by demonstrating that some lines should never be crossed. Any word from our former prisoners? Harrison asked. Carter's expression grew darker. The Korath survivors we released have been very busy, sir. They're telling everyone who will listen about their experience in human custody, good or bad. That depends on your perspective, Carter replied. They're spreading word that humans don't just defeat their enemies. They show mercy to beaten foes and send them home with a message. Some species find that terrifying. Harrison understood. Mercy could be more frightening than cruelty. It showed a level of confidence and control that made enemies think twice before acting. Admiral Amy Foster, recently promoted from her previous role as a fighter pilot, now commanded the Coalition's new rapid response fleet. Her ships were stationed throughout the galaxy, ready to respond to emergencies within hours instead of months. The difference is remarkable, Foster explained to a group of alien officers during a training exercise. We've stopped 4 potential genocides, 12 piracy campaigns, and 1 attempted slave raid, all in the past 6 months. The alien officers listened carefully. They came from species that had been fighting losing battles against crime and aggression for centuries. Now they were learning human tactics. The key, Foster continued, is not to fight like humans. It's to fight like the predators your species used to be, before civilization made you forget your fangs. Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian fleet raised a clawed hand. Commander Foster, my species has been civilized for 10,000 years. We have no memory of being predators. Foster smiled. Commander, your ancestors survived on a world with acid rain and metal-eating parasites. Trust me, the instincts are still there. You just need to remember how to use them. The training exercises were revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, Coalition forces were learning to fight with flexibility and aggression. They practiced rapid deployment and unconventional tactics. Most importantly, they learned to act decisively when innocent lives were at stake. Back on Earth, General Peterson received a visitor that surprised him. Hive Queen Sharath herself had requested a meeting. She arrived on a small diplomatic ship with minimal escort. Peterson met her in a secure conference room. The former ruler of the Korath Empire looked smaller than he had expected. Her compound eyes showed fear and exhaustion. General Peterson, she said through a translation device, I have come to deliver a message from my people. I'm listening. Peterson replied, the Korath Empire formally surrenders all territorial claims in Coalition space, Sharith announced. We will withdraw to our core systems and cease all expansion activities. Peterson nodded. That's a start? What else? We will provide reparations to all species we have harmed, she continued. Our biofactories will be converted to produce food and medicine instead of weapons. We will share our biological knowledge with the Coalition for peaceful purposes. And, in return, Sharith was quiet for a moment. We ask only that humanity remember we kept our word. Peterson understood. The Korath were not just surrendering. They were asking for protection. They knew that other species might seek revenge for centuries of predation. Only human protection could guarantee their survival. Your people will be safe as long as they keep their promises, Peterson assured her. Humans protect those who choose peace. Sharath left Earth with a formal treaty and something she had never expected to feel: hope. The most feared empire in the galaxy had learned to trust the species they had once planned to consume. Meanwhile, Ambassador Price found herself in an unexpected position. Representatives from dozens of species were requesting meetings with Earth. They wanted trade agreements, defense pacts, and technological exchanges. The irony is not lost on me, Price told her staff during a planning meeting. 6 months ago, most of the galaxy considered us dangerous barbarians. Now they all want to be our friends. Is that good or bad? Ashterade, Lieutenant Sarah. Brooks, it's complicated, Price replied. We wanted to be accepted as equals in galactic civilization. Instead, we've become the civilization that others look to for protection. The change was visible everywhere. Human patrol ships were welcomed. In systems that had once banned them, human merchants found new markets opening on worlds that had previously refused to trade with Earth. Human diplomats were consulted on conflicts they had no direct involvement in. But perhaps the most significant change was psychological. The galaxy had rediscovered something that thousands of years of civilization had nearly erased: the understanding that some fights were worth having. Captain Joe Martinez received a new assignment that illustrated this perfectly. A coalition world called New Haven was threatened by raiders from outside galactic space. The planet's government had requested human assistance. Captain, said the planetary governor, an elderly Taurian named Kurbeth, these raiders are not like the enemies you have faced before. They come from beyond our borders. They follow no laws and recognize no authority. Martinez studied the tactical reports. The raiders used ships and weapons that no one recognized. They attacked without warning and showed no mercy to civilians. Governor, Martinez said, have you tried negotiating with them? Kurbeth's trunk-like nose curled in disgust. They do not negotiate. They only take what they want and kill anyone who resists. Martinez nodded. Then we'll speak to them in a language they understand. The USS Guardian and 2 sister ships took position in orbit around New Haven. When the raiders arrived, they found something they had not expected. Humans who were ready for a fight. The battle was short and decisive. The raiders had terrorized peaceful worlds for years because no one had been willing to match their level of aggression. But humans had been bred on a world where aggression was a survival skill. Unknown vessels, Martinez broadcast as his ships surrounded the raider fleet. You have 30 seconds to surrender or be destroyed. There will be no negotiation and no second chances. The raiders chose to fight. It was the last mistake they ever made. As news of the victory spread, other raider groups received a clear message. The galaxy was no longer defenseless. There were consequences for attacking innocent people. Admiral Harrison read the reports from his office on Luna Station. 6 months of human intervention had changed the galactic balance of power completely. But the most important change was not military or political. Carter, he said to his aide, read me the casualty reports from the past 6 months. Carter pulled up the data. Civilian casualties from piracy, raiding, and aggressive expansion are down 92% galaxy-wide, sir. Military casualties from conflict resolution are down 78%. Harrison smiled. And human casualties? Minimal, sir. We've lost 14 people in 6 months of operations. By comparison, the old coalition response system resulted in an average of 50,000 civilian deaths per month from preventable conflicts. The numbers told the story. Humanity had not made the galaxy more violent. They had made it more safe. They had reminded civilized species that sometimes violence was the only way to stop greater violence. The title of the story had proven prophetic. They called Earth for help. But Deathworlders don't play nice. Humanity had not played by the galaxy's rules. They had rewritten those rules entirely. The Velani ambassador Zithara visited Admiral Harrison one final time before returning to her rebuilt homeworld. Admiral, she said, when we first called for help, we thought we were asking for military assistance. We did not realize we were asking for something much more important. What's that? Harrison asked. We were asking for someone to care enough to act, she replied. The galaxy had grown so civilized that it had forgotten how to protect the innocent. You reminded us that civilization is not about following rules. It's about doing what's right. Harrison looked out at the stars through his office window. Somewhere, out there, human ships patrolled shipping lanes and kept the peace. Human diplomats negotiated treaties and prevented wars. Human scientists shared knowledge that would save lives. Ambassador, he said finally, we